football can be very, very rigid if you're a coach that plays with one-dimensional offensive football, straight lines. And I think players don't enjoy it when it's like that. You know, you have to run there, you must do this. That kind of language, I don't think it makes players enjoy the game or feel motivated, really, that they've got their own mind to make decisions. I think involving the players is an important thing nowadays. The modern coach now has to give information from the perspective of the player, give a rationale, give reasons behind things, give it in a manner that the player might have a little bit of choice. People talk again, going about the top guys, Klopp, Pep, Arteta. But you've got to remember, these guys must be good with people. They have to be, because to be a successful head coach at any level, you must have some sort of social skills that helps you connect deeply with somebody, that creates that kind of relatedness. It's what coaching's all about. It's an art in some ways, and nobody's got all the answers, Gary, you know.
Hello coaches, welcome back to another Modern Soccer Coach podcast interview. This week we are joined by Kevin Nicol, head coach of Mondelin Football Club in Norway, UEFA Pro licence, former professional. Structure versus creativity, what a topic. But not only is Kevin working in the professional game at the senior level, he's also written a research paper on structure versus creativity. That started the conversation between us, and then I managed to persuade him to discuss it in the podcast. This is amazing. The dynamics between structure versus creativity, is it one or the other? Or can you balance both? And if you can, how do you go about that process? Phenomenal. Hope you enjoy it. Please like, please subscribe, and check out the new webinar we're doing on 4231. Coming in a couple of weeks. Information is below in the link below. Thanks so much. Here's Kevin. Enjoy. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us today on the Modern Soccer Coach podcast. Really excited to chat.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gary.
We've had a few conversations online. It's a topic that I think everyone is having in the pub these days, as well as on the coaching. Is there too much structure in the game? But have we lost all the creativity in the game? You've got some study around it, you've got some theory around it, you've got some experience around it, but let's go with a baseline overall. Where do you think the game's at today? Have we tipped it too much in the structure scale, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you know, I've watched obviously a lot of football through the years, and I just feel we've lost a little bit of the maverick football player, you know. I do think the game's at a fantastic level, you know, physically, technically, tactically. It's you know, such a deep, complex level that, you know, it even amazes me, the top players, how they can change the press from one moment to the next moment. They're man, and then it's going zonal, and you know, they're so clever, you know, and the top coaches give so much detail. But I think almost football's getting to a stage where it can be getting a little bit boring, you know. It's maybe everyone knows what each other does. We're very aware of, you know, different tactics that the opposition comes with. The analysts give fantastic information. So, you know, I at times often enjoy watching football, maybe from a lower level at times, you know. There's often more mistakes, a little bit more excitement. And I think we have to be careful that coaches at an academy level or youth coaches maybe don't overdo things in terms of, you know, overstructuring it, giving young players far too much detail that they cannot handle. And then the game becomes a little bit less enjoyable, perhaps. And there has been a lot of talk about relationalism, something that I enjoy watching. I've never really coached it as such to the degree that I see, you know, these guys that, you know, can do it. Malmö, for example, Rydström has done a great job. It's lovely to watch. It's just nice to see something different. It's nice to see things off the cuff a little bit, just little round the corner passes, little 1-2s. A lot of players in one area making angles. So, you know, I think just the game maybe has been getting a little bit too bogged down maybe in the tactics perhaps, and it's often refreshing to see some other coaches trying different stuff. But like I say, I think we have to remember kids in particular need that space to be creative, and if at a youth level we're going too much into the detail, then I think it's detrimental to the overall development of individuals.
The article that you wrote, so you sent me the article, which is amazing. The coach's provision of structure for players' competence development, perspectives of professional soccer coaches and players in Norway, by yourself and Justine Allen as well. Let's get stuck into that, because I think sometimes it's easy, Kevin, to say, you know, we got to get the balance right. But I think how do we get that balance is like a real art and a science in itself. So let's talk about this article. And you Thankfully, you sent it to me, and I said, "Oh God, Kevin, this is heavy. Can you send me some cliff notes?" And you did. So let's take a few of them. I've written them down. Players suggested the best coaches could teach complex detail in a simplistic, concise manner. So is that directed towards language? Is that the volume of information? Is that complex session design, or what is that the concise manner that we can get to?
Yeah, I think the best coaches through my playing career that I experienced was the guys that can maybe use 5 words where other coaches might use 15 to 20. And I think we have to be very, very careful as coaches, especially at half times, for example, maybe team talks before a game, that we don't overload guys. We don't give them, too much to think about, and it just becomes a big mush in their brains, So I think we have to come from the perspective of the player first and foremost. What do they need to know in a clear and concise manner that they can understand as well? And what language are we using as coaches? Are we using language that the players don't understand? Maybe some players don't understand what the half space is, So we have to be careful we don't come with things that don't really mean a lot to players. And at the same time, I think coaching staffs now are expanding, especially at the top level. Everyone wants to say their own little piece. We've got sports scientists as well. And sometimes I think it can maybe become a little bit too much for players. So we have to be careful what kind of information we use. And at the same time as well, back in my day when I played, it was a very controlling type of information. It was very authoritarian. So I think the modern coach now has to give information from the perspective of the player, give a rationale, give reasons behind things, give it in a manner that the player might have a little bit of choice in certain situations, which gives motivation. So, like you say, it's all very nuanced, and I think maybe the experience of the players group you have influences how much information you give and what type of information you give. If you do have an experienced group of players, then maybe it's easier to give a little bit more because they've got more in-depth knowledge of the game. So I think it's very important that we always remember the context that we're in. If you've got a very young players group, then they might need less information, but they actually might need it more clearly said forward rather than an experienced group.
I was listening to the overlap this morning, and Lawrence Delalio, who rugby manager, sits, how many rows up. But then Wayne Rooney is on there, and he's talking about Arteta and Pep and the level of information that they give. And I thought he was going to give a compliment because Rooney's normally a real positive guy, and he said that he couldn't focus if that was him on a football pitch getting that amount of information. He would find that off-putting, and I thought that's really interesting because Rooney could play Rooney was played a number of international football, European level football. So it wasn't as if he was a street footballer. Rooney was kind of morphed into. I thought that was, and he's also a coach head on him. Do you think there's do you think it's almost perception of, again, Pep, Klopp, Arteta, that has dropped down to youth level, that we think that we have to do that?
Yeah, I think we do. I think we're always very influenced by our idols, you could say. These are fantastic coaches that we want to look up to, we want to learn from, of course. But we have to be mindful of the players that we coach. How good are they? How much information can they take in? And I think often, I've seen it many times before, that academy coaches maybe have got a little bit too much ambition in terms of how they're coaching the game. They have to remember these are young kids that want to enjoy themselves. And if it's constant messaging, constant feedback, it's almost controlling like robots. I think that's a little bit early in their football development to be doing that, So I think as well, even at an adult level, a senior level, you tend to know the players that like to talk detail, that are very motivated by getting involved in tactics. And maybe the player, you just need to give a little bit of freedom and less information for them to play well. So everyone's different. And it's always a hard balance as a head coach when you have a group, because it's always a little bit difficult just to know, okay, today, do they need a little bit more, or should I take a little step back and give them less to think about and let them play? So Like, all these things, it's what coaching's all about. It's an art in some ways. And nobody's got all the answers, Gary, and Pep and Arteta are just a different level, I guess. But you have to remember that these guys have got top players that they're working with on a daily basis.
The speaking of the art, the piece that you wrote on the study was connection before teaching was a common theme. Feedback given was not as effective without the connection built. And again, it's we talk social media, relationships, but again, it's how do we do that? And that's something that I wish coaching could actually, the community could actually get engaged a little bit more from the 3,000 likes and actually get stuck into a conversation about how do you connect. Where in some regards, like with the younger players, it may just be easier, where it's they're coming in and they're open, but when the player starts to develop personality, the connection becomes a little bit more challenging, especially if there's cultural differences and there's financial dynamics as well, I would say.
Yeah, I think a key, and from the study I got this a lot. It was all about seeing the player. It was if the player could feel if you really cared for them, just the way you talk to them. And we've all been with different people, in different workplaces or different environments. But you genuinely feel, and I've been around some top coaches in the past, and it's such a lovely way with people. And I think that is the key. People talk again, going about the top guys, Klopp, Pep, Arteta. But you've got to remember, these guys must be good with people. They have to be, because to be a successful head coach at any level, you must have some sort of social skills that helps you connect deeply with somebody, that creates that kind of relatedness, which then brings a kind of almost a safety in the relationship, which means the player can trust you. And sometimes as coaches as well, we need to be honest, not in a totally critical way, but if we can be a little bit critical at times, but we've already developed that relationship, it makes it go easier. And the player can maybe accept it a lot better than if we've not managed to create that trust and we're critical at the same time. Then you can lose a player. Confidence goes. The coach doesn't like me. So absolutely, I think connection is the number one in coaching, and if you can manage to get that little bit of trust, not just individually but also collectively, then I think the players will always do it for you.
I just watched it sounds like I watch TV all day. I promise to do some work as well. I just watched the Thomas Frank, the diary, the Sky Sports. Have you seen this one? Put it out this week.
I've seen little clips. I've not actually watched all the way through, but he looks just like a lovely guy.
Lovely guy. That's it. Obviously, it's really interesting, just the nuances of the environment. But the biggest takeaway for me is that when the guys follow him around, and the guy does a good job. The interviewer does a good job of being quite aware that he can't just drop everything and show him everything. He's conscious of that fact. But when Frank is in mid-sentence, you can see him looking. He's talking to in a lot of the different settings. He's like, "Hey Mark, hey John, I'll get you in 5 minutes." Little things like that, and that's what I was thinking was he must be really good around that place with people.
Yeah, absolutely, and he comes across great in interviews as well. He seems like a totally great guy. It just reminds me a little bit. I remember starting out at Wraith Rovers in Scotland there. When I was 16, first club I had, and had a head coach there called Jimmy Nicol. In fact, he was Northern guy. Yeah, absolute brilliant coach he was. So much enthusiasm. But what a guy he was with people, and had an assistant called Alex Smith, an old Scottish manager that won the Scottish Cup with Aberdeen. I think he was at St Mirren when they won something as well. And just the way they welcomed visitors into the club. I already seen this at the age of 16. So anybody that walked in the door that they maybe knew from before, or even knew, maybe never had a great connection with, they treated them like kings, when they walked in the door, because it was a football club. And just the way, I think, in the olden days with the Scottish guys, how they were so respectful of different people, how they treat supporters, they made them feel very, very important. I think that the top managers have got this kind of trait in them as well, that they take care of people first and foremost. That's the most important thing. And then the good results will come from that through the tactics they have and the methodology they have as well.
Yeah, we had someone talking about Jimmy Nicol a few episodes. I think it was Damien talking about him, and he was saying that, at Northern Ireland, he blew him away how it was the young kids. Normally it's difficult. The older you get, the age range change becomes an issue. But Jimmy Nicol was always dynamite with the younger kids.
Yeah, I remember the day before a match, Jimmy had like kind of fun games. He had like little games, heading the ball off the crossbar and all these little things, and little competitions. His training was absolutely brilliant. He's so enthusiastic, and I was so lucky. I just thought, this is normal. This is normal for senior football. But it wasn't. He was such a good guy on the training pitch, and he made young players feel important as well. He wanted to build a club around youth and promote you up to the first team. And he came to every single youth team match, under 18 match. He used to travel over Scotland watching the youth team play. He came to all the second team matches as well, reserve matches. So he was fully committed to everybody in the squad. And he always had a little bit of information for you after the game. He kind of had a photographic memory. So he'd get you into the home dressing room, get you to the tactics board, and he would always give you something. And you'd walk out there feeling so important. You're only 16-year-old, and he was the manager. So the way he treated everybody, not just the older guys, but the younger lads as well. Like you say, he made you feel so important.
It's really interesting, that piece about the training that you talked about, that little fun games. And I wonder if you're a coach that maybe isn't that relational based, but uses the training ground to build that rapport and get that connection with the players from getting in the previous generation. I remember coaches doing that, and you would just, again, you didn't really have a relationship with them off the pitch, but on the pitch they could make you laugh. They had an exercise that could get people going. But that's gone. A lot of that's gone now, Kevin. Like, a lot of that's gone in session design and science and build.
I love that, Gary. At least once a week we have a bit of that. It's just a little bit of fun. It's great. It's great to get the humour in the group and get a good feeling. And you're absolutely right. Nowadays, it's very common for managers to know about, personal details of the player. We get really close at times. But back when we played, it was, if you seen the manager in the corridor, you'd be kind of hiding. Oh no, I don't want to speak to him. So if you got called in the manager's office, like, oh, I've done something wrong. Dearie me. But yeah, but on the pitch, they were always very good to get that kind of humour and that connection and a little bit of banter. So that was the way back then. But it's different now. Maybe it's got a little bit boring on the pitch as well. It's all very, must be to the game model, all very tactical. But I think, like I said at the start, everything's a balance. It's important we've got enough fun in training. Even the top teams do that. And not every day has to be a tactical day where everything's very serious.
Hello coaches, we'll take a quick break here. Thank you so much for all your support on Modern Soccer Coach. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for the subscriptions. We have just passed 50,000 YouTube followers, which has been an amazing process to go through. We're halfway there. Our goal is 100,000. We have promised to increase the quality, increase the volume as the numbers rise up. So we are going to keep doing that there, but we appreciate every like and every share. It means a lot and it goes a long way to helping grow the channel. So thank you so much. A lot of new stuff also on the website. Please go over there and check it out, modernsoccercoach.com. If you're a fan of 4231, we have a webinar coming in a few weeks to talk about how to build your game model principles in possession, out of possession, in transition. 4231 on March 7th. You can sign up and register below on the link. If you miss the live version, you get the recorded version within 24 hours of the event finishing. So 4231, if you are a fan of 4231 or you are looking at 4231 or you want some more ideas around 4231, please check out the new webinar. Register below. Thanks so much. Back to Kevin. Another interesting piece in the study, in the article, was a degree of freedom within the tactical framework was necessary for players to enjoy the football and not feel like control robots. And this is something that I battle with myself on, is this level of freedom where people say, I'll give them a little bit of freedom, but that freedom's usually in the final third, where it's not really freedom anyway, because I've never seen a lot of game models that actually have real detail in the final third. So you're giving up something that it's really hard to create, unless you're City and you can create the timings and the movements and the consistencies of that. Normally people are tossing a coin when they enter the final third anyway. So With that degree of freedom, is there a, do you think we need to challenge that in other elements of the game model, perhaps in build up or defensively, or is that unrealistic?
Yeah, you could say that. I just think there's more risk involved at different ends of the pitch, and that's why maybe as coaches in the last third, as Pep's famously said, that he gets the team to the last third and then they've got to do their thing. I don't really believe that. I think they've got set patterns and things, of course. Um, but yeah, the risk involved playing out for the back. If you do give maybe a little bit too much freedom there, it can become a little bit of chaos perhaps, and it is risky towards your own goal. I think as coaches, defensively, are always very, very structured. Um, I don't think there's so much freedom involved there. But what I would say is, I think it's very important we coach that, especially offensively, that we coach giving players options. I think, and I think football can be very, very rigid if you're a coach that plays just one-dimensional offensive football, straight lines. And I think players don't enjoy it when it's like that. You have to run there. You must do this. When you get here, you must cross the ball. That kind of language, I don't think makes players enjoy the game or feel motivated, really, that they've got their own mind to make decisions. So I think involving the players is an important thing nowadays. Young people learn at school that way in terms of social learning, speaking about things, answering questions. I think as coaches, obviously we can't overdo the questions. I think then it gets a little bit slow. But I think definitely asking the players some questions, get them in groups, maybe watching some video. Maybe you can get the right side of your team sitting watching a little bit of video. What can we do differently? Anything we can do to be more creative? Little ideas like that where players can come with input and feel involved. And I think that grows their development also in terms of knowing the game. So they're thinking a little bit more deeply on things. I think that's very useful.
Brilliant, brilliant. All right, this is going to take a twist now because this is where I think you said it in your message about the senior level. The players want that information and clarity and roles and responsibilities and structure. They do need some of that. You can't just roll into a first team changing room and say, go out and enjoy yourselves and come back with any credibility in a week with that their style of coaching. But and I think it's healthy that we actually talk about it. The genius or the gold is in the balance of the two. It's not picking one or the other. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, Gary. I totally agree with that. If we never provided players with information and clear guidelines on what we would like to do, then the whole thing turns into chaos, And maybe some players think we should do this, and some players think we should do that. We have to be on the same page. So there must always be a certain type of structure involved in how we play the game, even offensively, of course. In the last third, there must be some sort of guidelines, as we say. And if you're a player playing at the highest level and there's maybe 40,000 people watching, you need to know when you step on that pitch that everyone around you knows what to do. You need to almost know unconsciously under pressure that you can trust that your teammate will be there. You've got things you've agreed on. So that's why, especially at the higher level, there needs to be a certain amount of structure for players to feel competent. Of course there does. Otherwise, there's nothing worse when in the back of your mind you're thinking, oh, we don't know what we're doing today, So I think, especially in a team game, there must be some sort of cohesion in what we're doing. But at the same time, like I've said, it's a balance. And I think the top teams have players that can find solutions to problems without being told by the coach exactly what to do the whole time. And I think as a player as well, you would know yourself that if you are trusted by the coach, there come with different solutions, not completely out of the box, but something that could give you something. Then I think that's extremely motivating and makes you feel as though you want to go out and play, and it's exciting that you can maybe try a few other options that you don't have to do the whole time.
Yeah, I think this is a great topic because I went over to Spain a few months ago. One of the learnings for me in terms of generation, first time I've been with a youth group in 15, 20 years. So coming with, the preparation side of me was like, I was going to enjoy a little bit of, giving them that freedom. And the first experience I had was the guys, and I gave them positions and, certain references, but mostly it was like, listen, go play the game, enjoy it. And I thought, good for you, Gary, like that's... And then, but the reaction for them was, Well, two things. One, but coach, I don't play this position, and I thought, oh, then my initial reaction to that was, well, that's us, that's our culture, club. We've got to fix that. But then the other part was like when they were telling me positions, they were cam things like like the PlayStation references. I thought, oh wow, it's not actually. There's a bigger picture here, where they're now consuming the game in a different way than we consume. It's not just on coaches and environments. This structure that they expect is coming from video games as well. Blew my mind.
Yeah, totally, Gary. And I've got a son myself. He's only 15, but he loves tactics. He loves talking about, oh, this team's doing this, and I think it comes from FIFA. Different positions, and you can pick different formations, and the players really want to get involved and want to know exactly what to do in each situation. I think clear role demands as well is very important for each player. It's not just the whole the structure 4-4-2, 4-3-3. I think it's what do you want me to do in this situation, coach, for example. So I think it's very important that the players know individually what you expect from them, and that gives them a feeling of like I say, a little bit competence and confidence. So also, we have been guilty, like I started with in the conversation, as coaches, we start very early at the age of, maybe 12, 13. We're very, very tough on them in terms of you must stand there, you must do this, this is how we're going to play, this is the game model of the academy. And unfortunately, we've maybe developed players that cannot think for themselves. Like I said, I think we're missing that Wayne Rooney type, maybe a Paul Scholes type, a Steven Gerrard that can play in every position and be fantastic. Nowadays, everything's very much like you are a number 6 from the age of 12 when you go through your career playing in that one position. I think we're missing the kind of street footballer that we managed to develop in Britain maybe 15, 20 years ago. Now everything's very, very you are that type of player. And yeah, we've stopped seeing players shoot, haven't we? We've stopped seeing long passes. We've stopped seeing 25-yard rockets in the top corner. So every team now is obviously playing the percentages. It's become a little bit of a different game, actually.
Very much so. All right, going to throw another dynamic at you here. What about coach education? Because obviously you've been through your licenses with the Scottish FA, who we've had people on the Scottish FA. Greg, I saw him a couple of weeks ago. Greg Patterson, top guy. So it's not again, it's not binary, good or bad. This is whether coach education in general, because it's coach education, in fairness, has done a good job, I think, of staying relevant and up to date with the tactical trends in the game. But I wonder if seeing people going through, and this is over here, seeing people go through presentations, assignments, and it's very coach centric. No one's ever come and sat me, listen, I've had to do a presentation on a inverted winger or positional. It's very collective, very science in terms of lows, management, sizes. And I wonder if that then, again, for first team level, yeah, there's a place for that. But if it's a B license and you're an under 14 academy coach, but does coach education maybe play a part in this too?
Absolutely, Gary. And I actually think coaches of, like, say, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, their focus often is too much on team. Instead of thinking about individuals on the pitch, it's always about, winning the weekend a little bit too much, or how we're going to play the weekend. But you actually forget about, maybe you've got 2, 3 really good players in your team. Are they getting enough activation today to work on their ability? Is my striker getting enough? Are we looking enough at his movement and behind? How's he receiving the ball to feet? Or are we just looking always at the team and where he's standing and like he's, how's he in relation to him, rather than the individual? How are they performing? How's my central midfielder getting on? Is he, getting tight to enough people defensively if he needs to work on that part of his game? So I think we always need to look at two things at the same time as coaches, even at senior level. We need to learn to look at the big picture, but also, how certain individuals perform. And it takes a little bit of practice as well to kind of zoom in and out a little bit within the same session. But I guess that comes with a little bit of experience. But like you say, if you're a new coach in the game and you've got 14-year-olds, then I think you can't forget that the main reason you're coaching them is to develop them individually and not just the collective of the team.
They're going to get that tactics later, right? They're going to get more than enough tactics at 15, 16, onwards. And I do understand, like I do a lot of curriculum design these days, and a lot of trying to more, like my role and my job at the minute is more trying to reverse engineer game models and bring it back from 11v11 to 9v9, 7v7, 5v5, 3v3, 1v1, and I love it. But the more I'm living in that space, the more I just shake my head and was like, did I really once time think that a 6-year-old could go into an 11v11 if they were given the information? Like, there's got to be a structure in place for that, and that structure, there has to be more space. Surely there's got to be more space. But I wonder if society in general values more information, don't we? We're all dying for information. We don't digest any of it, or we just consume all of it. And the coach that's glorified is the one who actually now doesn't have the charisma or the charm or the humor. It's the one that has the information.
Yeah, good point you're making as well. I think the great coaches of the future will be coaches that can involve players more. I think, honestly, it's going to get to a point where there's just too much information. It's players' brains will be exploding. So I think managing to get the players involved more in how you play as a team, I think, especially at a younger age, I think that really triggers development, makes them be a more flexible player that can play in different clubs and different formations, can think about the game a little bit deeper. I just think we tell young players what to do a lot of the time, and maybe go into too much detail and overanalyze things a little bit, and just instead let them play the game and often figure things out for themselves, asking them questions, maybe peer-to-peer learning, giving them scenarios that they can solve. All these little things I think are very good in the terms of youth football, and when they come up to senior level, then they'll be better prepared for the challenges ahead.
How much does culture play a role in this, and your experiences in Norway, which I would guess is quite a progressive country in terms of how their approach to education, their lifestyle, their culture. It gets out of Scandinavia, even the style of football in Scandinavia gets people talk really, really highly about it. Does it make it more, is it more of a collaborative culture there? Do these conversations, these environments become easier maybe?
Definitely, Gary. We have a more equal relation, the coach and the players. There's more equality in what we do. I don't get called gaffer or boss. I get called Kevin, So it is different. It's a little bit different. And in general, everything's more level. Even in society in general, we have a very high tax system, so everything tries to gets more level. And the way they're taught at school as well, I think there's a lot of trust developed in the student at school to work themselves, to figure things out together in a group. Um, they enjoy coming with things. They're very, very quick to speak in the dressing room. They love getting asked questions. And also, I found when I came to Norway that the players feel much more comfortable at standing up in front of a group, maybe putting their hand up and saying, I feel really deeply about this, that we should do this, rather than in Scotland where the manager just told them to do everything. Basically, the players just sat there and get ready to be told what to do. If the manager says jump, you need to jump. I think it's changed a lot now. I think so, but I think, and I've experienced this as well in Norway over the last 19 years, that I do think players have become a little bit more, I think soft's the wrong word. I think we use it too much as coaches. I don't think they are soft, but they're much more feeling, very empathetic. They've maybe been in a kind of comfort bubble quite a bit. It's a really good lifestyle here. They've not had much, what can I say, things going against them so much. So maybe when they come up to first team level, it can be a shock for them, just when they're under pressure. So we have to be mindful as coaches as well through the academy system here and working with young players that we can develop mentally strong enough players. I think the national team struggled with that a little bit in Norway, that they've got some really good offensive players, but they always seem to find a way to lose a game. So, I think it's kind of cultural also, that they've got that, maybe not that kind of cynicism as many maybe Eastern European teams have that help them win games.
Oh, so interesting. There's like a trade-off there. The culture piece I just find really interesting. Like I was listening to on the treadmill today. I was listening to basketball. It's the other podcast I listened to with the overlap is a basketball one, and two 90s basketball players get ex-pros on, and there's a guy today, Byron Scott was on, who was a Lakers coach and still coaching the league, and they were talking today about the difference in player power in the NBA. And it could have been, you could have just taken NBA out and wrote Premier League or a professional, one of the big leagues, in again, dynamics with players, load management, tactics. But what really interesting was, and I was thinking of this interview when I was listening to it, the collaboration piece was viewed really, really negatively by the coach, by Byron Scott. He was like, last year I had a second year pro who asked why we were doing something, and I was thinking like, yeah, that's probably normal today, right? He was not having it at all. He was like, till you win a championship, you give, So like, and I wonder if our, we talk about these models, putting these models in place, and the research that's been done, and the education that's been done, but is there part of it as well that our culture has to be ready to accept some of that as well?
Totally, and the players have to be ready to accept it as well. I had an interviewed a player for the project I did, the paper, and he played in Poland, and he said, if you as a coach went to the players and asked them a question, they would think you're totally stupid. What is this guy doing? He's the boss. He must tell. We're waiting on him telling us. So I think the cultural piece is brilliant. It's so interesting. I'd love to work in another country as well at some point and just see how much I would have to adapt and change, because at the end of the day, as a coach, you have to be there for players. And in some countries, actually, they want to be told what to do. They want to be really shouted at, because that is just the way it is, But I guess in the Scandinavian countries, it's a little bit more open for dialogue and collaboration. And maybe it depends on sport to sport. I think in rugby, I've heard some really good things, how to do things, especially, in England, and they're very open for these, different things, different discussions, player-led scenario stuff. But I think football's still got a little way to catch up if we're going to go down that road.
Very much, very much. It's interesting. As I was looking at my phone there, I had to get the name. Barry Douglas was on the Under the Cosh podcast. Have you listened to this one?
I've not listened to that one.
Oh, talking about Bielsa for half an hour. And really, yeah. Oh my God, one of the most insightful, interesting, because everything's wrong. Like there's no collaboration. There's no music in the gym. There's no relationship. There's no enjoyment. But what's interesting is that it's because of the culture, right? It's the culture piece for him. It's where South American culture, and coming from that there, it's a different style. But I'm with you. I'm like, I would love to go and see, again, some countries that are way more collaborative. How do they do that? I think we're trying in the US. I genuinely think there's a massive movement to try and get coaches in a better place of giving information and giving play. But it's just, again, I don't know, there's a lot of noise over here. I think genuinely people want to do better, but I think it takes a bit of time as well.
Yeah, I think that's natural. I think maybe in some countries the manager, the head coach is the hero, He's the guy that wins and loses games, and that's why they get sacked, But I think in general, in other countries, it's a little bit different. There's probably less head coaches that get sacked in Scandinavia than maybe other countries where there's more pressure, of course. And they expect the boss to be the big man. He's the guy, He's the charisma guy. He's number one. So I think over here it's slightly different, but even though I think there is still some coaches that are like that. But it's going to be interesting over the next 20 years as everyone feels important now, like you say, at the very highest level, the players almost run the show, they've got a lot of power. That's why I feel the coaches that are best relationally, especially during the bad times, will manage to come through it. I think the coaches that just like Bielsa, that are like kind of using the hammer on everything, it doesn't matter if it's not a nail, they'll still use the hammer. I think that's very short term. It can work really well, maybe a 2-year period, but it's not going to work for longer than that, just because relationally it's not there, and players will get burnt out basically. But yeah, some managers are like that. That's very short term projects, and it can be successful. And it just depends on your personality, I think, as well, Gary. I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think fans love winning. So if it's a coach that, maybe rubs a few people the wrong way inside the football club, maybe destroys a few players, then if they get a win at the end of the day, then everyone's happy, But I'm from a different kind of viewpoint. I think I enjoy working with people, and I like looking after them, caring for them. I've certainly made mistakes. I love to win, and I think it's when the winning becomes everything, you tend to go overboard and maybe say a few things you shouldn't. But you must remember that we're always working with people here, and I think well-being and mental health is a really important thing. And it's really good that people are now starting to become aware of that. And I think in the past, how we were treated as football players wasn't always the right way, to be honest.
Yeah, let's talk about your journey, because it's fascinating. How does a Wraith Rover centre back end up living in Norway for, you said, 16 years?
Yeah, I came over first in 2005 on loan. What happened was I broke my foot twice when I played for Hibs in the Premier League there. Never had so many games, so that's why Tony Mowbray thought it would be a good idea that I got a club in Scandinavia to play summer football. My fitness is coming back in April time, so I'll be ready for the season. So I came over to Strømsgodset in Drammen. I still live in Drammen in Norway. Played there, and loved it, absolutely loved it. But I guess I was a kind of open-minded guy. I was that type of guy that would maybe jump at the chance to do something like that, and Tony knew that. So it worked out really well for me. Managed to get a club the next year permanent, a club called Haugesund, a 2.5-year contract. And my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, decided to come over with me from Scotland. And I was out of contract a few times in Norway, but I seemed to end back at another club in Norway. And once you've been in a country for 5-6 years, then people tend to forget about you back in Scotland. And that was us, really. And I had my first kid when I was around 28 years old, and he's now 15, and I've got a girl who's 11, and you settle down, and now you're into the lifestyle, and speak the language a little bit. I tend to speak English mostly around the club, and people complain I don't speak enough Norwegian, but people understand English so well. I get a little bit lazy with the language, but understand everything. And the country's been absolutely fantastic to me, so I've had a great time. And the club I'm at just now struggled a little bit financially the last 2-3 years, so it's a huge challenge this year. We're favourites to go down, a club called Mjøndalen. But I see that as something to look forward to. We've got very many young players that are very hungry. We've got the least amount of money in the league, but for me, what we've been talking about today already, all these things are so important to build a good group, to get a good understanding how we're going to play, and we'll attack every game this season coming up. And I think I'm in a good place, so I'm very happy how things are going.
2019, I went over to Blackburn to visit Damien Johnson at Blackburn. I spent the morning with him, and obviously he's involved in the player development side, so brilliant chat and really enjoyed it. And but when at the clubs, when the day is kind of petering away and people are getting away, and I'm conscious of that, so I'm like, listen, no worries. And he's like, oh, the manager wants to see you before you go, and poked my head in the door to Tony Mowbray, didn't want to waste more than 10 seconds of his time. He kept me there for half an hour. Like, Damien Johnson left me there, but that was the plan. The plan was, no, you're sitting down here and you're going to tell me why you're here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the club. And it blew me away, what a guy.
Yeah, I remember the first day he came into Hibs, and the previous season we were maybe third or fourth bottom of the Premier League. And I think there was only maybe 10 signed players at the time, roughly 10 to 12. The squad was really small. But that is the best first day chat I've ever heard from a manager. I would have loved to record it. I walked out of that dressing room thinking, wow, we're going to be so good this year. The charisma that he had and the presence was unbelievable. So right from the day one, I thought, wow, this guy knows where he's going. And I believe the team finished third or fourth that year after finishing third or fourth bottom, so it was a great turnaround with a team of basically young players, and he added some players from England, and we got a French guy, and it was really good as well. And it was a really good place to be at that time with a lot of enthusiastic young lads, and it was good memories.
You've obviously done the pro license and you've done the education. You still go back a fair bit, but the the paper that we talked about and referenced, where did that fit in terms of, was that a pro license project or was that something exclusive?
It was actually a master's I did in performance coaching at Stirling University. I'd done the pro license and I was assistant at Mjøndalen. And I felt I'd been a head coach before in Asker, and that was third level in Norway. As assistant, I felt I had maybe 2-3 hours extra during the day. I could have been learning more, So I looked around for extra education I could be doing, and the master's degree popped up at Stirling Uni, performance coaching, and maybe the best thing I did, honestly, Gary. I learnt a lot through the UEFA coaching licenses, of course I did, but learnt a lot more about teaching. I learnt a lot more about the psychology of management and coaching, relations, all these little things, how people learn, of course. And it was really good for me. I definitely become a better coach from it and got a little bit more inspiration, how to be a slightly different than other coaches. So I've got, the best of both worlds, I think. I wouldn't class myself as an academic, far from it, honestly. I was so nervous doing it. I remember the first assignment I got, I was like, what am I doing here? I left school when I was 16. I felt completely out of my depth, honestly. So, but I got through the 2 years really well and actually started to enjoy it. I love learning. It's a huge motivation of mine. And I would advise other coaches, especially if they've managed to get to a decent standard of coaching licenses, that do a little bit more academic work and try to expand their mind a little bit and see things from a different angle.
That's really good to hear that. And really important and powerful to hear that, I think, because you're almost automatic, like it's programmed to say today that you're too busy to take on another, but then the amount of time that's spent scrolling and talking about something on scrolling and associated with that, there's 5 hours in the day for that there. What was the most, because you've done a little bit of player development piece as well, right, in your journey with that there. Was that like, did you link a lot of, like, was there video analysis to that there, or more organization around that, or how did that help that?
Yeah, we did a little bit of video analysis. I tell you what, this is not the question you asked, but the most powerful thing I did was wear a GoPro camera on my chest, and done that for 2 or 3 sessions, and just to hear myself coach, you often, like, very rarely do you actually video camera yourself coaching, but I did that, and it was okay, but there's certainly changes I would have made. I think I was a little bit too talkative, very enthusiastic, constant messages, just so to say a little bit less, but it did help mainly through reflection, I would say. I think doing different assignments, going quite in depth on things. I think the academic side of things makes you go really, really in deep. I felt more than the coaching licenses, normal ones. And we went through everything. It was, planning and preparation was a huge one as well. I actually found that that's not something I enjoy too much. I've got quite a good workload preparation, but planning in the long term is not. I wouldn't say it's a huge strength of mine. So maybe I need people around me that are good at that. And I found that the psychological side of things was the thing I loved. I was mad into that. Wasn't so enthusiastic about physiological side of things, how the body works. It was more about the mind and how you get the best out of people. And I guess that's why I done that paper I did, because it was quite highly linked to that. But and I think, and that's another good point as well. I think it's important in a coaching staff, and if you're the head coach, that you've got people around you that are different than you, that have got different strengths than you, because we're not all perfect. We've all got weaknesses, and to do the master's program actually helped me realise what my weaknesses really were. I can be a little bit too intense, so that's, it is a strength, but it's also a weakness when it goes too far. So to get the right people around me is really important.
Brilliant. All right, last one. This interview is absolutely flown. Let's advice. So a coach that's listening to this and is like, you know what, spot on. I need to be more aware. I need to be more conscious of information overload, giving the players a little bit more. Again, you talk about the GoPro and the shirt, but like, I think a lot of coaches not sure aware of the volume of information that they're actually giving players. Starting points, way to catch yourself. What's your advice on this?
Oh, good. That's a really good question, Gary. I think when we're taking a session and we're in the moment, I think it's super difficult to, to realise that you might be doing it too much. I think what I like to do after a session is what did the players feel today? I like to put myself in the players' shoes. Maybe it's what we did, maybe it's what I said, maybe it was overall quality. Why wasn't it so good? Was there anything I said before the training that maybe could have influenced it? I think I think after the session it's really important to reflect, because it's the only time that's there for us to learn. I think through reflection, through self-awareness, and I think getting people that are honest around you is really important. And that's something I work really hard with the coaching staff, that they can develop that and they can be not harsh with me, but they could say the truth and, oh, I wouldn't have done that, for example, or maybe we could have done that better. So I think that's super important for you to develop as a coach, that you find a mentor maybe, or you find really good people around you that can give you honest feedback in a nice way, and that you can go away and think about it a little bit and come back as a better coach the next day. But it's a journey, and I'm still a young coach. I'm only 43. I've got a long way to go, I feel. I've still got a lot to learn, and I look forward to the challenges ahead, and that's what coaching's all about. It's never going to go swimmingly well. I think there will be years where you get some good times, but there will be tough times around the corner, and I think it's to take those tough times with a little bit of class. I think it's important, because that's what gives you longevity in the game and makes people respect and trust you.
Top class. What a way to finish. Kevin, thank you so much. Absolutely amazing. Love this. Great chat.
Brilliant, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Wishing you all the best for the upcoming season. Now we'll have to keep up with that.
Yeah, great, mate. Yeah, it'll be a tough one for us, but like I said, we're up for the challenge and we're full of enthusiasm for the year ahead.